I'm against protectionism. I think it's a horrible thing. But I have to say that Trump's argument does have economic logic. And that is that when we studied economics, free trade in particular, we were taught, I think you were taught, I was taught this way, that free trade always creates both winners and losers in the same economy. But the gain the winners get is always greater than the loss of the losers. So the society as a whole always gains. So that's why our free trade is good. But none of the professors told us that this is actually predicated on one key assumption. And the key assumption is that the trade is either in balance or in surplus. In that case, this condition holds. This conclusion holds. But if it's running a huge deficit year after year, decades after decade, which was the case in the United States, over 40 years of continuously running huge trade deficits, the number of losers begins to grow. And by 2016, the number of people who consider themselves losers of free trade were large enough to elect Trump president. And so we have to really go back and say to ourselves, what did we do wrong to allow this many people in the United States to feel themselves as losers of free trade? And I think the key problem is with the exchange rate. We kind of let the exchange rate decided by so-called market forces, speculators, my clients, Wall Street types. But foreign exchange rate had to be set in a way that the number of losers do not grow to a point where the free trade itself is lost.
Do you see any economic rationale at the moment from either side that actually could avert more protectionism or actually working internationally on exchange rates? Do you see anything that's going to happen on a global basis, global cooperation, or within the United States itself, which will avert more protectionism?
So we have to graduate from this notion that U.S. trade deficit is all due to too much investment in the United States, too few savings in the United States. That view kind of dominates the Western academia. And if that is true, the only way to reduce U.S. trade deficit is for U.S. to go into recession and remain in recession so that domestic demand would be so weak and the U.S. would be able to export more goods. But in a in a democracy, that's an impossible situation, that you have to be in recession all the time just so that the trade balance will be balanced. And this is actually, in my view, completely wrong view of what actually happened. Because if that view is true, when U.S. was dealing with the Japanese companies were arguing that we are just filling the gap that U.S. companies cannot fill. The demand in your country is too big, and that's why we're just filling it in.
Yeah.
If that argument is really true, then American companies fighting the Japanese back in 70s and 80s should have huge profits. The capacity utilization has to go in through the roof because there's so much demand. But that did not actually happen. It's the opposite that happened. So many of them went bankrupt. So many losers of free trade were left in the streets because it was not savings and investment issue. It was the exchange rate issue. The dollar should have been much weaker. And Reagan understood that. That's why he took that action.